Earlier this week, I did an episode about guys TCU could not lose in the portal, guys they had to keep. One of them was Dominic Williams. Well, Dominic Williams hit the portal today. Where do the Frogs go now for defensive line help? We'll talk about that and more next. It's Lockdown Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Lockdown Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Download that in the App Store or in Google Play. Today, Dominic Williams, star defensive lineman for the TCU Horned Frogs, the man in the middle, that pivotal nose tackle position. In the Joe Gillespie defense for the past two seasons, that 3-3-5, that was a true 3-3-5, where they had three down linemen 90 to 100% of the time. He is moving on. He is hitting the transfer portal. Reports have surfaced that he has put his paperwork in to be in the transfer portal and find another school. Now, a couple caveats here. He can always come back. That is a possibility. Now, it doesn't sound like that's a great possibility at the moment. It feels like this is something that he's been kind of mulling over for a while, and he already has some moves in mind. I saw that he's already scheduled a visit with Oklahoma, so we'll see where that goes and what proves to be the case here. But it appears that TCU will be losing Dominic Williams. He was a freshman All-American 2 years ago. Last season, a little less from a stats perspective, and I think overall his impact wasn't felt as much in the defense. But bottom line is, he started every game since he hit campus. The famous thing about Dominic is he was still 17 years old when he made his first start against Colorado. It was a big deal when TCU got him with the new defense that Joe Gillespie was bringing on once he got hired. One big topic of conversation was, who are they going to put in the middle, because there aren't many guys on the roster currently that have played in Gary's 4-2-5 system that were your prototypical type of nose tackle that can take up double teams, can take up a lot of space, can keep gap integrity in the A gap and make things happen and tackle, make tackles for loss, be a force in the run game, all those things. And so TCU went and got Dominic Williams. They got him late in the process. He was a 3-star player from California. Cal was very interested. They sort of stole him late in the recruiting process, and he immediately was a starter, and he started every game from the minute that he stepped on campus. And as a freshman, he was just absolutely fantastic. Had 3 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 33 tackles overall, and was, an All-American. Excuse me, that was last year. 33 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks this past season. 2 years ago, 27 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. Even though the numbers don't say it, I think actually his first season was his better season. He just did such a good job kind of anchoring that defense. I feel like it also helped that he had Dylan Horton on the outside, who became a really good pass rush threat, especially as the year went on. There's no way to sugarcoat this. This is bad, right? You're losing a really good player. He was one of the guys that I said, again, a few days ago, you have to keep. At the same time, I think there's a lot of fallout from this, but there's kind of 2 things I want to hit on. The first is the short term. What do you do from a football perspective as you go through the rest of spring camp into the summer and the rest of the offseason? And then long term, what does this mean for TCU and the program moving forward? Obviously, he was still going to be a huge part of this defense under Andy Avalos. I was hopeful that the change up would allow him to maybe get some more one-on-one opportunities, even though I think that's going to be reserved more for your stud linebacker and defensive ends. They're going to be on the outside of the defense, rushing from the edge. But still, I was hopeful to see what Dominic could do in a new role with some new opportunities. Appears like that's not going to happen. In the short term, though, I am hopeful and optimistic. I don't know who they'll go add, but my guess is maybe they add one more interior type of defensive lineman in the transfer portal this offseason that could come in and compete for reps. You also have Timon Mitchell from Georgia, who's been in the program for a few years, transferred over 2 off seasons ago, and has flashed at times. Marcus Deal, one of their most coveted recruits from a few cycles ago, that didn't get a ton of playing time last year, but the hope is this offseason he's gotten better, that he's improved. He got some valuable learning experience last year as a freshman. And then another name that's come up is Sterling Brooks, the true freshman out of North Crowley. And I think he could be a factor. I will say I'm a little skeptical about that just because he's not going to, I mean, he's not on campus right now, so he won't get here until the summer. There's going to be a pretty steep learning curve, as there is for everybody transitioning from high school to college. So I wonder how much he'll be involved, especially at the beginning of the season. Maybe as the season goes on, he can be someone that they count on for some valuable snaps. But the main thing that this is unfortunate, the main reason why this is unfortunate is there just aren't a lot of dudes like Dom on the TCU roster. I mean, he's 6'2", he's 320 pounds. He's got that size and that ability that you want at the nose tackle position. And this is just not a team that has 5 or 6 body types like that are ready to step up and play right away at the moment. Now you can add help in the portal. As I said, you got some young guys who I'm hopeful will step up and make things happen. But Dominic was the best run defender on the team in my mind. He wasn't putting up crazy sack numbers, but for the position that he was in and the amount of pressure that was put on him and Joe Gillespie's defense, I think he did a good job getting to the quarterback from the interior and making some things happen behind the line of scrimmage. And I was ready to see him sort of unleashed in this new defense. As I said, I feel like this past year he didn't flash as much as he did 2 seasons ago. But the bottom line is he's arguably been their best defensive player for the past couple of years. Now, Nnamdi Obiazor had a claim to that this past season. I think Dylan Horton had a great year 2 years ago. Josh Newton, Trey Tomlinson. There's been some great defenders. But as far as guys that did their job really well on a consistent basis, it's hard to argue with the fact that Dom was the best or one of the best players on the defense for the past 2 years. The long-term issue here, I've seen a lot of panic today, which I get it. It's an emotional thing. Nobody wants to lose a player of this caliber. And on one hand, I've seen a number of people who have shared the link to the Flying T Club and basically been like, hey, if you don't want these types of things to happen, donate to NIL. Donate to our NIL collective. Make sure that they are well resourced and able to retain players. I'll say this about that topic. I understand the messaging there. And yes, I would encourage everyone, if you want TCU to be good, if you want TCU to be competitive in this new era of college football, having a robust NIL allotment is a key factor to that. Maybe in this day and age, as far as recruiting goes, not maybe. It is the most important thing when it comes to recruiting right now. At the same time, I don't like to talk about this stuff on the air too much because ultimately it's all speculation. We don't really know a lot about the official numbers, like concrete numbers that these guys are getting. But if you kind of follow the back channel reporting, it sounded like Dominic Williams was taken care of pretty well. That TCU had already made a couple efforts through the past few years when there were rumblings of his departure to get him some more money, get him some more funds. And at a certain point, as much as I love him as a player, and I don't begrudge him for testing the market, interior defensive line is one of those positions that a lot of recruiting reporters and people that follow college football have said, hey, you can make bank if you are an interior defensive lineman. It's a highly sought after spot, and it's a place where you can get paid. And I can't be mad at anybody for testing the market. I think the system's kind of broken right now because, yes, I agree that players should be able to make money, but everybody's a free agent. That's kind of a crazy concept. Even in pro sports, we don't see that. But that's really not the issue here. Like, we can't belabor that point too much because everybody's dealing with the same problem. Bottom line is, it seems like TCU made the effort multiple times to do what they could to keep Dominic around. And whether it was financial opportunities, believing if he goes somewhere else, he has a better shot to get to the NFL, getting closer to home. He's from California. I know USC could be a factor here. Whatever the case is, it feels like they did what they could, at least from what we know, to keep him around. He's going to visit Oklahoma for their spring game. I saw Carl Reed from 247 Sports say that right now Oklahoma and Texas are the two schools that are the leaders in the clubhouse for his services. Here's my bigger concern long term. I actually think Sonny and the staff have done a really good job so far of keeping impact starters on the roster. I don't feel like TCU, at least to this point, has become a program where the best guys are getting poached by bigger schools. I don't feel like they're the Round Rock Express of the SEC. Really, in the past few seasons, Dominic's the first true, high-level starter I can think of that's left. Now, they've had some guys with a lot of promise leave. I feel like they wanted to keep Jordan Hudson around. And you could argue he could have been or should have been a starting wide receiver for the Frogs when they took on Colorado to open the season this past year. I think Kyron Chambers was a young corner they liked a lot. Cordell Russell had a ton of promise, and I'm sure they would have loved to have had him in the fold this offseason. But all those guys were players that hadn't put together a lot of college production when they left. They had a lot of potential. I think TCU wanted to keep them around, but they weren't necessarily players that were expected to be key contributors going into the season. Now you go back to when Sonny took the job, Zach Evans, Kyrie Coleman, Tyler Guyton, even though that seemed to be more of a they just weren't using him correctly and hadn't developed him than NIL opportunities. But you had some guys leave. However, for the most part, they've done a good job of retaining players. I do wonder, and I do have a fear of, I think as far as skill positions goes, receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, your guys in the secondary, when we talk about, especially on the offensive side of the ball, those positions, I think Sonny's always going to recruit those spots at a high level, especially QB, wide receiver. They've done a good job at running back the last few years. I'm excited about what Jimmy Smith, the new running back coach, can bring to the table from that angle as well. The big difference between the SEC, the Big Ten, and everybody else is they are so good in the trenches and so deep in the trenches. O-line and D-line, they got some maulers. The SEC does it on both sides of the ball, but they are definitely known for big-time defensive linemen. The Big Ten does it mainly on the O-line, even though Michigan and Ohio State have had their fair share of pass rushers, especially over the past 5 years. So I do worry about that. But to make it plain and simple, there's not a ton we can do about that. TCU has to stack wins and continue to make this an attractive place to be. When they were coming off a national championship appearance, people didn't want to leave if they had a chance to contribute because they knew this was a place where they could get where they want to go. And so you have to show that. Now, you're not going to go to the national title game every year as much as I would love that, but you have to show that you can be a consistent program under Sonny Dykes, and I think we won't have to worry about this as much. I'm not sure where Dominic's going to end up. I think the SEC is a good bet, but I'll miss him here. He was a really good player. I hate that he's leaving. I think TCU can survive these choppy waters with the personnel they have and with the addition of a good defensive lineman in the portal. But there's no way around it. It's a big-time loss. He's been a key contributor for the past few seasons. There's not a lot of dudes like him on the roster from a size or talent perspective. And it stinks that they couldn't find a way to keep him in the fold and going into a new defense that I think has a lot of promise and some expectation. I hate that he's deciding to move on. But best of luck to him. We'll see where he lands. TCU will try to keep everybody else on the roster happy, and especially with their starters, keep them around here over the next few weeks in the spring portal window. But we'll keep our eye on this story. Be sure to hit me up in the YouTube comments, on Twitter, however you want to. Talk about Dominic Williams and anything TCU athletics related. When we come back, tough day in the portal for the Frogs. They lost a commitment from the basketball team as well. We'll talk about that next in Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. Are you a competitive person who's looking for an outlet, a game to play, especially when you're bored? Are you just spending time on Twitter doom scrolling about which player could be leaving next for the TCU Horned Frogs? Don't do that. Go to the Apple Store or the Google Play Store today and download Monopoly Go. If you love to compete, this is the game to play. We all have a competitive side. Become a big fan of Monopoly Go today. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of dynamic Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. The best part's messing with friends. You can charge rent on iconic properties, and the leaderboards show you who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. It's not just your competitive side that will love it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or on Google Play. Download Monopoly Go today. Monopoly Go, proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. So about a week ago, C.J. Walker, forward from UCF, committed to TCU. Good size, 6'8" player. Averaged 7 points and about 4 rebounds for the Knights this past season. Started his career at Oregon, transferred to UCF, spent the past 3 seasons there, and looked like he was headed to TCU. But then today I got on Twitter, and it kind of got lost in the craziness of the Dominic Williams news, which, of course, was a huge deal today. But C.J. Walker is apparently decommitted from TCU. He shared, and if you're in the YouTube audience, you'll see this. I don't know why this made me laugh so much. But his announcement and the graphic that he put with his announcement was funny to me. Here's a picture of him in a TCU uniform, and then in red letters, decommitted across the middle, just in case you weren't sure exactly what message he was trying to get across. I'm not totally sure what happened here. I will say this was a very quiet recruitment. Didn't hear any chatter about C.J. Walker before he committed. Like, there wasn't a report that he was visiting, that TCU was interested, that he was interested. He just woke up one day and was like, hey, C.J. Walker is committed to TCU. All right, cool. That makes sense. He seems like the type of player the Frogs would go after. Very athletic, get up and down the floor in transition, plays good defense. And it was just kind of random. I mean, like, I think he's a good player. I feel like he's going to be a good contributor for this rotation. I don't think he was someone that they're going to run the offense through or anything. But what was your favorite moment from the C.J. Walker era in a TCU uniform? I don't know what the breakdown was here. I'm not sure if they got interest from someone else and they were like, hey, not totally sure this is going to work, or if there was some snag with degree track, whatever the case may be. But C.J. Walker is not coming to TCU. So at the moment, the Frogs have one portal commitment in Frankie Collins, the point guard from Arizona, who averaged 13.8 points per game last year, was a volume scorer for the Sun Devils. He's going to be your true point guard for the Frogs, running the offense, getting them into sets, trying to make things happen. They had Noah Reynolds, the guard from Green Bay, on a visit this past weekend. They'll have more players come in. But back to the drawing board after the C.J. Walker situation, I guess kind of went awry at the last minute. It appears he'll be moving on somewhere else. So hope he finds a good landing spot. Again, not really sure what happened. It was sort of an odd situation in the first place, just from the standpoint of there wasn't a lot of coverage or attention around his commitment or his recruitment. But he's going to go back to the drawing board himself and see what other opportunities are out there. The big key to me for TCU basketball, yes, you want to add big-time players in the portal. You need help there. But these young guys, Isaiah Manning, Jace Posey, your true freshman, like David Punch, like, can these players step up and be dudes right away? And are they ready to run this thing? Because I think Jamie's turning the keys over to them. Like, you want to get impact players in the portal. You want to get guys that can get it done. You need shooters. You need good guard play. But it feels like we're having a changing of the guard where, okay, we're giving the keys to these young guys. We're sort of turning over the core of this roster. How are they going to respond? How are they going to step up this upcoming season? That's the big deal to me for TCU basketball this year. You have to get good play from your young guys, and then hopefully that's something that for the next few seasons can carry over and that they can build around. We'll get some of your reaction when we come back on Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day. Behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all your investment and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. Let's get straight to the point. If you want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising cost of inflation, pay off your debt or your mortgage, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and financial freedom, Yahoo Finance can get you access to the news, data, and tools you need to reach that financial freedom. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or you're looking for extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the number one finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analysis ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. For comprehensive financial news analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination. Again, that's yahoofinance.com. Behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance, yahoofinance.com. Go there today and learn more about how you can consolidate all your investments into one hub and be as prepared as possible no matter where you are in the world of investing. On yesterday's show, I talked about some guys that TCU could target in the portal. Isaiah Augustine was one of those players, running back from Arkansas. And the reason I mentioned him, other than the fact that he showed some promise in limited opportunities, having over 200 yards for Arkansas last year, over 100 yards in one game against Florida International, was because Jimmy Smith, TCU's running back coach, came over from Arkansas, recruited Isaiah there. So maybe that connection could pay off for them in reconnecting now. One YouTube user said, do you think we should go after one of these running backs in the portal or focus on getting some help in the front seven on defense? Honestly, before today's news, I would have said add one more running back. But now that Dominic Williams is apparently moving on, I think it's more imperative that you get a nose tackle or somebody else along the defensive line that can create some havoc. I'll also say the more I think about this running back room, yes, it's unproven, but I do feel pretty good about the idea of if everybody sticks around, between Cam Cook, Trey Sanders, Trent Battle, and the two freshmen, and Nate Palmer and Jeremy Payne, I don't think all those guys are going to get significant carries. But I feel like there's enough talent that you can get quality production from that running back group. Now, is it going to be one specific player? Maybe, or maybe it ends up being more by committee. But the bottom line is I think there's enough there that they can feel pretty good about where they are and what they can do running the football. Now, Augustine is an interesting prospect because he's young. He's got multiple years of eligibility, and he's shown some promise in limited action. I don't feel like they need to go after a vet who is, looking to get the lion's shares of the carries for one more year. But I would be intrigued by someone in the mold of Isaiah Augustine from Arkansas. As far as what's more of a priority, though, now, I would say, D-line, front seven. Can't have enough of those guys rotating in and out to stop the run. Tanner McKinney says he doesn't think they need to go for another running back. Cam Cook has been doing well with the ones in practice. He broke free for an 80-yard touchdown in practice. Trey and Battle are a good change-up backs. We have two freshmen. I think they need to look in the linemen more than anything. Yeah, I definitely agree on the offensive line part, and they've made some efforts there in this portal window, even though they haven't leaned to commitment yet. And I believe in Cam Cook, too. I think, again, I kind of broke that down a minute ago. There's enough in that room that they can, get after it and make things happen. David May says, just as I'm watching this, the Dominic Williams news drops. What the heck? Maybe he didn't say heck. I don't know. That's for him to know and decide. You jinxed it, David. I think we can all just boil this down to it being your fault. No, I'm just kidding. It's unfortunate, man. I mean, I did that video a few days ago, and there had been some talk about Dominic in the portal, but I felt pretty secure about all those guys that I mentioned. It didn't happen. So we'll see. We'll see how TCU rebounds, how they respond to this. But, unfortunate that he is looking elsewhere and testing the market because I think he's a special player, and I feel like he was doing good things at TCU for the past couple of years, and that's been a good marriage for both parties, honestly. But it appears he's going to move on, so we'll follow that story closely. We'll be back on Friday, wrap things up for the week. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team. We do it here every day.